Hey folks, this is Kalani. Corruption has been a hot topic for pretty much all of patch 8.3, which isn't really surprising considering how much damage you can actually gain from a single effect. It almost doesn't even matter what the rest of your gear looks like sometimes, because effects like Infinite Stars, Echoing Void, and Twilight Devastation can end up being a huge chunk of your overall damage. I've seen players with 30% or more of their total damage done coming from just corrupted effects. Well, the dev team doesn't seem too happy with the super powerful ones right now either, because they're on the chopping block. Massive nerfs are coming for a select few corrupted effects to bring them back in line. There's also been some interesting changes to horrific visions to make them a lot easier to run for some players, so let's dig into that as well. But first things first, just how bad are these corruption nerfs? We actually don't have all of the information just yet. We have more of a brief outline of what the dev team is planning to do over the next 24 hours, or at this point I guess the next 18 hours or so. They made a post late last night, so Tuesday for anyone watching this a little later in the week. They made a post on Tuesday night saying that they're going to upend a good chunk of the corruption system, nerf some of the best ones and buff some of the bad ones, and we'll see how things go from there. Doing this on a Tuesday night is kind of lame, because that's after the majority of players on North American realms will have opened their weekly boxes and chests. If they got something that previously wasn't all too great and decided to cleanse it, but now the dev team goes ahead and buffs the bejesus out of that effect, I don't know if there's going to be any recourse to get your corrupted effect back. So until we have every little morsel of information about these upcoming changes, do not cleanse, delete, disenchant anything. Keep it all. Leave your corrupted gear as is and wait for the final verdict to decide whether something is worth cleansing or not. It might just end up being your next best corrupted effect. It's better to be safe than sorry. The most important piece of info that we have for sure is Echoing Void is definitely on the chopping block. They said they will be reducing the effectiveness of the Echoing Void corrupted effect significantly. Now, you don't say significantly if you don't want to cram this thing into the dirt. This is already after a hefty round of nerfs, by the way. Echoing Void was doing quite a bit more damage when the patch first came out, so this is the second round of major nerfs for this particular power. But just how significant could they really be? Half the damage? Half the proc rate? Half of both? I really wonder what their plan is for the Echoing Void effect. Should it only be worth taking in AoE situations? Because right now it's incredibly powerful in both single target and AoE situations. If you compare it to something like Infinite Stars, it's actually way easier to get damage out of Echoing Void. The only limit is you have to be in melee range of whatever you want to damage. Infinite Stars isn't actually a super amazing effect for all types of fights. It doesn't excel in any situation where you can't stack up the debuff. If the boss shifts in and out of phases constantly or becomes inactive for long periods of time, you can't stack the damage increase, so it doesn't do that well. The same goes for AoE situations. It just doesn't work if you can't stack it up, so any monsters that you have a lot of, you're not going to get a lot of stacks on, and you're also not going to be able to get stacks on anything that dies too quickly. But that's fine. When you can get the stacks rolling, Infinite Stars shines like no other, but Echoing Void doesn't really have any of those restrictions. It's just good, simply good in every sense in every situation. You don't have a bad Echoing Void. I do expect to see something get halved with this effect. I really do, for it to be a significant nerf. But there are some other changes on the table too. They will also be buffing Void Ritual by, and I quote, a small amount. Hopefully a small amount isn't actually a small amount, because that effect is almost an instant cleanse for a lot of players right now. It's just not worth the corruption most of the time, at least not when compared to some of the other effects on offer. Deadly Momentum will have its duration increased. This is the one where you have a chance to get some extra crit when you crit, so you can crit more when you crit more, and it keeps on going. The plan here is to extend the duration so the buff doesn't fall off, so I guess the dev team just wants that to have 100% uptime if you have something to attack. And then there are some other considerations. So we don't have any solid info, or really any info at all on these yet, but they're written on a whiteboard somewhere in the dev team's office in big red letters. under consideration. They might reduce the damage of the Twilight Devastation effect, which is also a heavy hitter when you're in AoE situations, and because this one also scales off your max health, it's fantastic for tanks wanting to do a bit more damage. And then we also have increasing the effectiveness of other corruption effects, which could mean anything, really, at this point, couldn't it? There are quite a few more corruption effects that we probably forget about now and then, like increasing your secondary stats for a brief period of time, getting more crit or verse or other secondary stats from all sources, and even dealing more crit damage with all of your abilities. Hopefully, some buffs into some of the lesser used effects could tip the balance enough so it doesn't feel like a huge letdown if you don't get Infinite Stars or Echoing Void or Twilight Devastation, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the dev team have planned and what they actually end up doing. As I said, we don't have any super solid info that's coming in the next 24 hours. So that could pop up at any time tomorrow really, so when we do get that info I'll give you a quote and a link in the comment section below for everything that gets changed, so you don't have to go hunting for that info somewhere else. How do you feel about some of the top tier corruption effects getting nerfs? Is there any particular corruption effect that's not too great right now that you would love to see get some buffs? Let me know in the comment section below. Alright, let's have a chat about horrific visions and what's changed there. The main nerfs this week are for a select group of players only, the selfless ones out there who take up a shield or a staff and keep the rest of us tunnel vision DPS alive and well. Both tanks and healers will see a drastic reduction to the amount of monster health in horrific visions if they decide to run them solo. For the tanks, all monsters will have 25% less health when they run a vision by themselves, and healers will see a massive 42% health reduction on all monsters when they run a vision solo. That should make it significantly easier and faster to get through a vision and all of its bonus objectives. I'm actually super curious to see how this plays out. I know some tanks were already blasting through the visions, clearing the entire thing, and some very well geared tanks with amazing corruption effects like Echoing Void and Twilight Devastation were even full clearing with masks turned on. That seems crazy to me. Those players will have a blast with this change for sure. I have heard that tanks without a lot of gear haven't had the best time in visions though, some even struggling to kill the main objective without dying. This change should help anyone wanting to solo visions as a tank quite considerably, so get out there and earn some mementos. Let me know how it goes after the nerfs. I am really interested to hear how you do now. The healers get a much larger nerf to work with, which isn't too surprising really. They kick out the least DPS overall out of the 3 roles. Or at least some of them do. A 42% health reduction means anyone who was actually progressing through visions at a decent pace as a healer solo before will be blazing through them now. Now there are some healers who can do quite a lot of DPS, some of them are even built for it like holy paladins, so I wonder how quickly a healer will be able to clear through a vision after these nerfs, especially if they have a lot of awesome gear and some good corrupted effects to give them that extra little push. For the sake of science, Nadara went into a horrific vision solo as a holy priest to see just how far she could get with these nerfs in place. Now a holy priest isn't really one of the specs that's built for massive damage, or really any damage at all. We've all heard about the shape-shifting affinity druids, the Shockadin paladins, or even the battle resto shamans, but you don't see much about holy priest DPS, so if this works out well, you know it should work out for almost anyone else. The major problem that a lot of healers might run into is not having strong interrupt or stun abilities to help with large packs, or particularly dangerous monsters and mini-bosses, so if you can't kill something fast enough, you might just die to debuffs or lack of sanity or the really hard-hitting abilities in here. I think the real key to soloing visions as a healer will be to skip as much trash as possible, because when you're 1v1 with the mini-bosses it's a lot easier to keep up, but a lot of healers really do lack strong AoE. Some healers also lack mobility quite badly, and we all know that going fast in visions is very important, so while you might not have any trouble actually killing things now, you might still struggle getting a full clear simply because you can't move fast enough. Nadara didn't really have any issues killing monsters, but running around clicking on the various objectives did slow her down. She was able to clear 2 corrupted objectives and 1 lost objective quite comfortably, and this was her first time in here solo. A few more runs and she reckons she could full clear without too many problems, though it is quite a bit slower than when we run the visions together. As with the tanks, please let me know how your vision runs have been going after these nerfs as solo healers. Are you able to get a lot further than you could previously? What spec of healer are you running as? Let me know in the comment section below. Before we head off, there is actually one more nerf to the Stormwind Horrific Vision, which is handy because that's the vision we're all dealing with this week. The 2 guards in front of Illyria's room right outside the cathedral, the ones which stun you and plop a big old absorb on themselves and are just a real pain in the rear in general, they've been taken down a notch or 2. They'll use their stun ability less often, and the ability itself will deal significantly less damage than before. Their little shield that reduced damage taken by 75% has also been nerfed, so that's down to 50% reduction, which will help you keep up the damage even if you fail to dispel or stun that specific ability. How do you feel about corrupted effects getting nerfed? Should they remain super powerful so they're worth hunting down, or did some of them get a little out of control? What about those horrific vision nerfs? Have you been maybe avoiding the visions as a tank or healer because you were forced into grouping because it wasn't as easy solo? Will these nerfs bring you back into the system to try things out with the significantly reduced health pool? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these other guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.